Hey there, and welcome back to the Balance Journey. In today's episode of my Gratitude Journey playlist, we're talking about what to do when life is hard, you can't quite feel grateful, but instead of forcing your gratitude, you need to do something different instead. We're going to talk about what you can focus on that maybe can shift for you how it has shifted for me in various experiences, specifically for me during my menopausal years when life was changing physically, but I think also life of my purpose and what my focus was going to be on. Those things were changing as I was becoming an empty nester. And we're just going to be looking at how, even if for you it's a different thing, health issues or relationship issues or whatever, where you're feeling like life is really hard, what you can focus on that will help you to find your center, return yourself to balance, and move forward from there. So let's get into it. This is the Balance Journey, where we're all about turning challenges into growth opportunities and bringing mindfulness to everyday life. Okay, so I really do mean it when I say we must not force ourselves to try to feel grateful when it's just not genuine. I've talked about that in my gratitude versus toxic positivity video in the previous part of this playlist. But today, what we're going to talk about is how do you release that pressure? And what can you do that actually makes you feel like I'm still being active in some way, right? Because nobody wants to just stay stuck in the feeling that we're in. And when you're finding life being hard and, there's just a lot of heaviness, a lot of challenge, a lot of, just not being able to wrap your head around what you're going through so that you feel settled about it. Releasing the pressure is something that you can feel like, okay, this is something I can actively do. One of the very most important things is that physically, we understand how much we are like kind of seizing up, okay? Like everything starts to slowly but surely come up here, and it's like you're in your head, you're in your thoughts, you're just anxious, and all of those things. The biggest thing you can do right then is just release the pressure in an actual physical, tangible way. I will tell you that when I'm alone, and if life is hard and it's bringing up anger, and I'm alone, I've got to be alone. I've got to be able to do this where I don't feel like I'm disturbing someone else. I will yell it out. That's a type of releasing the pressure. Or, there have been times when it's been a heaviness in the sense of a sadness, and the release of pressure might be tears, might be allowing yourself that release. It's simply going to get you to the other side of that complete pressure cooker that you have found yourself in. So you cannot pretend in any other way except this is where I'm at right now. And, for anything that is hurting you, being able to say, I can whoosh it out in some way, I think that's a very beneficial thing. Some people will say, punch a pillowcase if they're, I guess, a physical kind of person that feels they need to like literally get the energy out from their whole body. Stomping your feet. I mean, we can go as any direction we want to with this, as long as you understand that it is okay to allow for it to happen, to be intentional about, like I'm going to find a place wherever that is so that I can just release that. And to also know that it's not just a one-time thing, okay? So in those aspects, talking about releasing the pressure, instead of just telling yourself, be grateful, definitely we can't do that. Instead, you're asking, okay, what am I really feeling right now? How can I release this pressure, at least physically, to begin with? And then you're going to go a little bit more deep into your mental and your emotional aspects of releasing it to God as well. So, being a proactive, being a faithful person, even when you're asking for God's help, right? You want to do something from your side, don't you? Like sometimes we've been led to believe that bringing it to God just means, you leave it there and you don't do anything. And then you're like, oh, I'm waiting around. Come on now. So being a proactive person, being a person that just wants to move, let's go, let's get it done. Actually, the thing that you have to focus on is humility. And that's really the core of this entire episode. We must embrace humility as its own action. Besides just releasing the pressure, because, you've got to you've got to let that go so that you can kind of say, okay, I can kind of come back to some sort of balance for myself. Humility is truly the part that is an active component that you now have to say, I really got to get focused here. Okay, so stay with me, because I know these words that can be overused, you know, you hear it in different spiritual circles and that sort of thing, but really it's about humbling your heart. And this is something that I've experienced in my own life, you know. To me, it is an action. To humble your heart means that you're saying, damn, this sucks. I do not like this feeling. I do feel very stuck. I don't know where I'm headed. Whatever you're feeling, you know, you're admitting that, but you're literally sitting with it. You're saying, I hate being this vulnerable. I hate this humbled feeling. And so I want to meet it with an intentional humility. I can only tell you that that is really empowering. That is the shocking aspect. And I wish I could convey what it feels like if you've never experienced that yet. But I just want you to know that it's there. I believe it's there for each of us. This feeling of when I say, okay, I'm going to really be intentional about saying, okay, this feels yucky. I feel very vulnerable. I feel humbled. You know, I'd rather feel confident. I'd rather feel, you know, great about life. But right now I feel humbled. And what it can feel like for you to say, okay, God, I choose humility in this experience. I choose to come with an open mind. I choose to come with an open heart. I choose to come with a willingness to maybe see something that is actually in potential for me here, you know. In that way, you know, you're just being curious, but intentionally curious, because yeah, are you like, ooh, I wonder what this pain is going to give me? No, nobody feels that way, right? So it's an intentional curiosity that just brings this openness to the situation. And the empowerment that you can feel from that is, to me, an amazing thing, because it just makes you feel that, wow, I feel active. I feel effective, because this is something I can do. I can keep seeking for what does it feel like and look like to stay humble and bring a humbled heart to say, what's happening? What am I missing? Is there anything that I have been holding on to that I got to let go of, you know? And it is being curious, because you're not really up in your head. You're kind of curious in the, you know, help to inspire and kind of nudge me as I need to go. Even as, you know, you're busy living life, you are looking for that additional encouragement and nudge from spirit because you keep asking. You keep asking for something different, but you're not saying, help me to be grateful. You're saying, help me to learn, help me to stay humble, have a teachable spirit. Okay? And in that sense, being humbled is something you get to choose. Life humbles us, but you're now saying, I'm going to choose to meet it humbly. Because so many times life humbles us or other people, and what we see is, oh, got to brush that off and not let that take hold. So you're just saying, it's not going to take hold. It's not going to drown me, but I'm choosing to be humble in how I come to this humbling time. And you're able to say, God, I need so much help here. You know, like I really, really don't want to see failure in this. I want to trust, and I need help with these things, because I know my immediate reaction is my default thinking, you know, whatever your default thinking is. Be willing to believe in times like that, and even like the tiniest bit of hope, you know, that this pain isn't pointless. There's got to be something, or that it's just giving me the perfect reason, you know, to lean in, to be more intentional, to find even more connection. It seems like you want that to be its own avenue, that yeah, I'll take time to do that kind of spiritual stuff, but right now I've got my life and it's just crappy. But it's really been my experience that no, you actually, by really being intentional with saying, I really want to lean in right now, understand who I am. What does it mean to live the values now when it's hard, when I'm being challenged by life, by this humbling, and you will see that it will actually totally inform the actual experience that you're going through. It will totally help you to walk through that with the most amazing peace. And, in that sense, instead of building up pressure, you have released that initial so much pressure. You said, I'm going to stay. I'm going to keep bringing humility to myself, to my thinking, to my heart and my attitude. So just remember that, we don't have to manufacture gratitude. If we're turning our attention to keeping our heart open, honest, and willing, we're going to know that God meets us there. And that's going to really help us to find the gifts within the struggle, okay? And there really are gifts hidden in every struggle. I mean, again, that sounds so trite. It sounds so overused. But when you are living it and you're like, oh, I see what that means, that there are these gifts. You get it, And for me, the gifts that I have found when I've been struggling through hard times are clarity, strength, and compassion. Especially as all my kids were moving away and I was really, I think, trying to settle some of the final things from when my eldest was growing up and we had so much conflict, which I've talked about in a variety of videos. The old baggage we had, the unresolved stuff, I definitely did gain clarity. I gained clarity about what I needed to address and resolve with him, what to truly release to God, because, that is hard to do, but it was so freeing because there were things that I wanted to just fix. And I was like, as much as I tried with my son, it came to a point where I realized I must let you have this, and that I would love for it to be resolved, but I can't change another person's heart. And so I gave that to God, so that was something that I gained in the clarity aspect. And I definitely unveiled strength in my own ability to trust God's guidance and provision, because I've always believed in that. But, I've told you the stories about how, my son was kind of floundering and figuring life out. And before he came home to live with us again, which I've done that video on the Boomerang Kid, trusting God to say, I really and truly give you my child. I am worried. I hope he's doing okay. That unveiled a strength of faith that I needed to live in real time and apply in a real experience like I never had to. And it is hard, right? Especially with your own child. And also just the strength of letting go of the outcomes, because, we all want to pray and do all these things, but we would love for it to be what we think it needs to be. So really being able to say, I humble myself enough to know I don't control the outcomes here. All I can do is desire that for me, this is growing me. This is helping me to learn. This is helping me to deepen my trust, my faith, and to walk with a more peaceful heart. And I definitely increased and deepened my capacity in the sense that, I definitely learned to be more compassionate with myself, because I had been beating myself up for a long time in how I had raised my child and the volatility I had brought to the situation because of my own baggage and whatnot, but also compassion for my son, that I can let him learn his way and for our flaws and all of that, and also it deepened my capacity to be a presence for others. Once I had wrapped up my learning phase and really settled the hardships to the point that I could say I've learned these things and I've started to let that settle into, who I am and what my story is. Being able to just know that I think this is a really common experience, and to be able to validate for another person their experience so that they know, maybe, like what I'm telling you here. Maybe don't be worried about looking for gratitude right now. Maybe just allow yourself to say, it's okay, I can focus on being humbled right now. So I really believe these gifts are always available to all of us. Every sincere human being who is seeking Spirit's help in this mind, heart, and spirit circuit that we all have access to. If we're open to that, if we're using that, we will figure out what it looks like to actually apply them to our struggles, not to just have them in theory and believe in them, but where we actually walk the things that we talk about, the things that we believe in. I really want to get real for a moment, though, because I know you probably know this. We all know this. We all know this in a theoretical sense, and maybe you're even doing your best to already apply this humbling of yourself, But if you still have that nagging emotional lie in the back of your mind that's just saying, yeah, but if you're struggling, you must be doing something wrong. Well, then I want you to know that the truth we need to be ruthless about is that struggle is not a sign of failure. It is not a sign of failure if you are going through hard times, no matter what it is. It is definitely not spiritual punishment, and that's obviously my own claim, but I really cannot understand how it can be spiritual punishment in whatever way you would interpret it. I hope that's something that doesn't burden you. But in any case, whatever we immediately think about our struggles, about our hard times, whatever we condemn ourselves with, I just think we need to interrupt that lie. If it flares up, however many times it flares up, because it flares up in the back of your mind, right? It flares up in your heart and this feeling of defeat. So just let's all embrace this idea that just struggles are part of life. So let's just kind of normalize them so we will stop burdening ourselves with that extra layer that's telling us, oh, if you were better, you wouldn't have to be going through this. And that way we can actually just say, okay, it is what it is. And then we can do this work of humbling ourselves, walking through the struggle, not sidestepping it, or trying to get right past it, just being patient. Humility requires even that, the patience, the just willingness to just, okay, I can only do one step at a time. One step at a time. And then we want to look at the practical application of this. If you're on board and you're like, okay, I want to humble myself, then let me just give you a few things to consider that will help you in practicing this. We're going to talk about honest surrender, having a teachable mind and heart, and doing some timely check-ins, okay? So in the sense of honest surrender, when you're facing your struggles each day, you're simply telling God whatever's heavy, whatever weighs on you, continues to worry you, continues to anger you, whatever the emotion is, you're just willing to say, I'm not going to try to fix it or pretend that it's not there. I'm just going to name it. I'm just going to say it is what it is. This is you, between you and God, and it's always safe there, okay? It's not you blurting it out to somebody else and burdening anyone else. It's really just you being able to say, God, this is what I'm carrying today. And you are humbling yourself to say, I carry it because it's on my plate still. I accept that it's still on my plate. I'm not asking you to take it away, but I desire for a humble mind, a teachable heart, and that sort of thing. And I desire to carry it bravely and willingly. Something like that, and you're just acknowledging, if you're doing any grateful additional comment, you're basically just saying, thank you for being with me through this. I trust that you're here. I trust that I'm not alone in this. Thank you for strengthening me, because I know I'm the person who will have to actually walk through it, right? And then this teachable mind and heart, this idea that when you start to say, well, okay, that's all been great, but today I'm just like, oh my God, why do I have to go through this? And I've definitely been there. I'm sure you have too. Just pause. It's okay to say, why me? Get it out. Remember, this whole release the pressure thing that we talked about in the beginning of this episode. Hey, however many times you need to release that pressure, make sure to do that regularly, okay? Don't let it build up. But when you catch yourself and you're like, okay, why me? Or, oh, I can't stand this anymore, or whatever, just be willing to say, help me to have a teachable mind and heart even now. You don't have to know what you're asking for, except that you want to remain teachable even now, and teachable on like this level that is kind of in that spiritual realm. It may not be something that you read in a book and you gain more knowledge mentally. It might not actually change much in the way you feel in the moment. But when you say, I want to have a teachable mind and heart, you're just saying, whatever's going on in my thinking and in my feelings, I'm willing for that to shift. Okay? And knowing that spirit is the one that helps us with that, helps to shift it, helps to neutralize the vibration that is possibly blocked and making us feel so much heavier and struggling. So you don't have to have perfect faith. There's nothing that's needed here except just, being willing to stay open. And I'm willing to keep being teachable, be curious and open, And then the timely check-ins. Now, this is like no matter when something flares up, because, when you're struggling and life is hard, you're definitely going to have stuff constantly going through your mind. Wherever you are, washing the dishes or traveling to work or to school, or, whenever your worries flare up, you just say in a timely way, right then and there, okay, this is me coming back to you, acknowledging that this is what I'm feeling right now. Yep, I'm not going to beat myself up for it. It is what it is. This still sucks. It is really, really hard, Just be honest about, just this is how I feel. And when you understand that these timely check-ins are allowing you in a way to, again, release pressure. You might not always be able to, find a quiet spot where you can just let it out or something, but you won't have to. If you have been when you have had opportunities, you've been releasing pressure. It's still a type of releasing pressure, because instead of it starting to roll and roll and roll in your head, which really brings up the anxiety, and that's what causes the pressure, causes the, I don't know where to go with all of this. It's kind of like you're just kind of giving it, okay, God, here's where I'm at with this, when I would be driving in the car and I didn't know what to do about something that kept bothering me about my son or whatever, I would just say, I'm really glad that I am aware that this is what is bothering me, and I'm just talking out loud to God. Good thing that we have like Bluetooth, car, as if somebody else was watching me, they're probably thinking, oh, she's just talking to someone on her, car phone. But nope, I was just talking to God, really. But wherever you are, in those moments, you're just saying, this is what I'm understanding. This is what I'm experiencing, and trying to say, I'm glad that I'm noticing this. I'm glad that I am releasing the pressure, or I'm glad that I am having a teachable mind and heart. Whatever you can grab in that moment of the things that I'm sharing here to kind of focus on, you want to give yourself credit for those things, that you are being active. It's in what we're deepening and what we're gaining that we are actually continuing to be active and to continuing to find new levels of balance and centeredness. And that is something. That is really something. And so now to recap, we have looked at the idea that instead of forcing gratitude and beating yourself up for not feeling grateful, when life is hard, give your attention to humbling your heart. And as you humble your heart, finding the gifts of clarity, of strength, of capacity to deepen your compassion, to really have lived experience of the values, the truths that you believe in, figuring out what it looks like to actually apply those, and then being able to understand that, keeping this teachable mind and heart, gives you a type of give and take between you and God that allows for you to release pressure regularly and to bring your frustrations in a timely manner back to God all the time. And in a sense, what ends up happening is you actually have much more ability to notice the things that you can truly be grateful for, even as you're walking through your hard times. And I think that that is a very empowering place to be. When we can empower ourselves by choice, by what we choose to give our attention to, it can really be not only so much of a boost for ourselves, but it really is a great example to those around us, particularly the people who come after us, our children who are watching us and seeing how we are navigating our hard times. We don't have to be perfect. Let's let go of this need to do it perfectly. Let's just try to continue to be honest and just keep working on this circuit, being honest here in continuing to bring that back and say, I don't like being vulnerable, but I will go through this. This is for me. And if it's on my plate, I will carry it and I will do the best I can. I really hope that encourages you today. And we've got one more video in this Gratitude Journey playlist. I hope you'll check it out, and I will see you next time.